To file suit and get business damages by having this component in there. It is sort of like the hidden piece that it is apparently intended to do just that. So anyway, it is just a last year many of you probably heard and the comments about the mother of all preemption bills, and the legislature wanted to kind of stop local governments from doing bad things. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, so this bill, I think it maybe is more insidious because it's a little lower key, under the radar, but the impact is going to be horrific and chilling. And the bottom line is, if someone successfully challenges a local government's ordinances and prevails, they could be entitled to their attorney's fees and cost. Contrary, though, if the local government prevails, no attorney's fees. So guess that who pays for that? Us. Residents of a city or county pay for that, in spite of the fact that the ordinance may have been duly enacted, considered carefully by your local elected officials after thoughtful consideration. It's just, anyway, I'm trying to contain myself because I'm just appalled by what's happened to local governments who are captured in the Florida Constitution. These are not, just creations of state law. They are created and called for in the 1968 Florida Constitution, and what's happening to local government jurisdiction is it's being eroded and eroded and eroded. So anyway, I think that's probably enough said about that bill. As of today, I don't think the governor has signed it, unless he's done it recently. Last year, he didn't sign the worst bill, but this other one is just continued. And so given what's happened in the session, I don't have much hope that anything's going to change, but it may be so. The other item that I was tasked with speaking about is a preemption of local governments from anything to do with residential tenancies. So we're talking about landlord-tenant relationships, those kind of contractual obligations. So this bill is Senate bill, let me see, and I apologize, I misplaced the number, but anyway, that bill is very broadly preempting. Some of you may remember that the legislature already, in the Live Local Act, already preempted rent controls for local governments. So this is just an additional piece that seems like it encompasses almost everything else you can imagine. And not surprisingly, it's just one more piece of the taking away of local government jurisdictions, the health, safety, welfare perspective of locally elected officials to do the best for their community is just being eroded. Maybe, I don't know time-wise, but some examples of the kinds of things that we maybe are concerned about that could be subject to these preemptions is that if one, going back to the original Bill 170, one business, one entity feels like somehow their ox has been gored, no matter what the community. For examples, let's say you have an existing noise ordinance and your elected officials have an issue with a newly established business, and they would like to have the focus has been one newly established business, but maybe it's across the board. Residents are complaining because businesses are successful. So the idea that maybe you need to turn down the noise earlier in the evening. Well, that could be the subject of arbitrary and unreasonable. I'm not sure. The environmental groups are very concerned that things like sustainability, septic to sewer, other types of very important environmental considerations could now be subject to being challenged based being arbitrary and unreasonable, whatever the heck that means. And just in our area in the Treasure Coast along the Indian River Lagoon, we have Big Sugar. We have entities, other very large players that have more money and more interest, and would like to stop local governments from doing their job. So I think we all just need to be on the high alert about these things.
Thanks, Krista, for your summary on that. There is some good news on this front. We've gotten some polling data back from Florida Progress, and hopefully you guys, everyone can read that, given the tininess of Zoom sometimes. And we're looking at the graphic on the right, and that's some sample language. Stacey, you want to give that a read for me, because I talk way too fast.
I do. So if you'll notice in the really big bold, 88% of the polled participants agree on this. So this is a wonderfully powerful talking point. So whether we're from a big city or a small town, we know what's best for our communities. That's why we are fighting to preserve our local freedom to choose what's best for us. So the working people and small businesses that power our economy can continue championing solutions for the places we call home without politicians in Tallahassee and corporate elitists from boardrooms sticking their noses into our affairs. So if you look down in the yellow section, it says to make preemption the issue. This is not, Republicans are all terrible. They make bad decisions, this is about the issues itself. And then it says, make everyday Floridians the heroes against corporations and corruption. Now it's really easy to make that, to connect the dots to the corruption is coming from Tallahassee. This is a power grab, and this resonates with everybody you talk to.
Yep.
So
and we'll talk about that in some more detail when we get down to our putting this all together section. Thanks, Stace.
Absolutely. Yep.
And we'll move on to personal freedom. There's a lot of personal freedom stuff to get through, and Jean is going to take us through it in right now.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, this was definitely a session where we saw an incredible assault on personal freedoms. In fact, it's been called the Slate of Hate year. And that's a very apt name because there were many hateful bills targeted this year against the LGBTQ community, women, immigrants, people of color, voters, educators, local governments, as we've just heard, and even businesses, which is very, very surprising. Certainly, there were a number of bills. We're going to just touch on some of the big ones tonight. But one of the biggest is the near total abortion ban, SB 300, that was signed into law April 13th. It will become effective 30 days after the Florida Supreme Court hands down a negative decision, we think, about the privacy clause in the Florida Constitution. So that's when it will become effective, but it was signed into law. It prohibits pregnancy terminations after gestational ages of 6 weeks, before most women realize they're even pregnant, which is why it's called a near total abortion ban. It gives an exception from 6 to 15 weeks if women can provide proof. What kind of proof of rape and incest? police reports, restraining orders, medical records, court orders. The fact of the matter is that most women who go through rape or incest do not report these traumatic events. And so it really is not much of an exception there. And it will restrict abortion medications, which makes up more than 50% of all abortions right now. And it will make sure that only the medications can only be dispensed by physicians, making shipping services and going through the U.S. Postal Service illegal. So that is SB 300, the near total abortion ban, definite assault on freedom. Another assault on our freedom is the new voter suppression bill, 7050, called Elections. This is the third voter suppression bill in 3 years since DeSantis has become governor. And it is intended primarily to chill participation of third-party voter registration organizations that are instrumental in registering voters in disadvantaged and low-income communities in particular. There are a lot of hammers coming down on these organizations. You have to re-register every cycle. You have to provide a receipt to anyone you register and provide the name of the registrar, the person registering the new voter. You have to submit registration forms within 10 days to the SOE as opposed to the current 14. Otherwise, if you're found to have any infractions of this new law, there are significantly increased fines for these organizations, up to a max of $250,000. And most of these third-party voter registration organizations are small, tiny, nonprofit organizations just going out and registering voters. It places the burden on voters of knowing whether their voting registration, whether they're eligible, not the state. So they're going to continue to give all of us a voting card, but that has nothing to do with whether we're eligible to vote. They're putting the onus, the burden on people, especially returning citizens who can't figure out a way because there is no centralized database that helps them to figure out what fines they owe. And if anybody has infractions of this new law, of course, the election police are there to go after all of us and haul us out in our underwear, I guess, if they find us. It also bans non-US citizens from participating in the voter registration process, so taking away their freedom, certainly. Another anti-freedom bill is one that is a total misnomer called public safety. This is the permitless carry bill. It eliminates the need to apply for a permit to carry a concealed weapon, allowing people with absolutely no training or background screening to carry concealed firearms in public. It promotes a shoot first, ask questions later mentality, and it absolutely decreases all of our freedoms of feeling safe in our communities. And this session, of course, saw an onslaught of legislation targeted at the LGBTQ community, and Nathan is going to discuss those bills.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Jean. I could talk about this all day, since it's horrific, and it's been something that my community has been watching since before even the session was gavelled in. I'm going to talk about 3 things just briefly. There were a bunch more. Today, the governor signed SB 1580, the license to discriminate in healthcare. This is totally against a provider's Hippocratic oath that they're supposed to serve everyone. This gives healthcare providers, if they have a religious, moral, or whatever belief that they shouldn't be providing coverage, then they're not going to provide that service to members of my community, members, whoever that they want to not provide services to. HB 1069 is the expansion of the Don't Say LGBTQ+ bill. This bill now makes it all the way through 12th grade, the legislation that was passed last year that stopped it at 3rd grade. The book banning stuff is associated with this. Educators can be prohibited or can not have to call people their correct pronouns. So a bunch of bad stuff to go along with that. And finally, the gender affirming care ban, SB 254. This really is going to cause mental harm to, transgender youth that won't be able to get their hormones and other medically necessary gender affirming care that they need. This bill was watered down from what it was in the House, but it's still a bad bill and still affect the lives of many Floridians. But like I said, I could go on and on about that, but we are limited on time. So I will jump over. Actually, I think this is Stacy. Stacy, we're talking about the messaging about Florida's near total abortion ban.
So the good news is that there's a strong opposition to this ban. Most people see it as an overreach. It's too much. They've gone too far. And I'm talking to a room full of people that I'm singing to the choir. But the thing that we can kind of focus on, and I can't see what it says, so let me see if I took a picture of it because your faces are covering it. Give me a second. I did take a picture. If I can get my camera to open up for me. The government, so this was very well received. If you see to the right, when you're looking, the 62%, Nathan, if you go over to the other side of the, there you go, up to the top. Government should protect access to safe and legal abortion care and leave decisions about when and how to start or grow a family to Floridians and those they trust. So, when we start talking about that perspective, the government should protect us, not take away things from us, and especially when we start to talk about teams of people, right? People start to kind of soften a little bit when it's not just one person's decision. It's the family. It's in consultation with their doctor, their family, and their minister, right? These are now groups of people that are consoling and kind of embracing what decisions are being made by people. That seems to really resonate with folks out there that even are opposed to some decisions like this. And, I live, like many of you, in a very red rural place. And, what seems to resonate are just these conversations, right? The idea that overreach is overreach, right? So many of our neighbors believe that the government overreach is terrible, right? As long as it seems to feel like as long as it's on their issues, right? So what I say to them is, look, whether I support the woman's decision, right, is not my battle. My battle is to make sure she always has it. And they kind of go, oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. Because about the time that we allow government to make us carry to term, we're opening the door for the government to flip it back around and say, you can't have any children. Once the government is in the decision making of, in the doctor's office with us, in our bedrooms with us, then it's hard to kick them out just because they changed their position. So, these are these overreach conversations. And if overreach is overreach, then allow women to continue making health decisions that best suit their family. And that seems to resonate. So I've kicked this one to death, Nathan. You're shaking your head at me like I'm talking too much. So what's up? What's next?
We got Jean back to take us through public education.
Yes, just
Awesome.
a couple of bills to talk about here in education, though there were a number. They were certainly obsessed with this session with school boards. All right, school boards are definitely their new nemesis. There is House Joint Resolution 31, partisan elections for members of school boards that will require members of district school boards to be elected in partisan elections if we allow it to happen, because this has to go on the ballot. All right, this is not a law that DeSantis is going to be able to sign in. We, the voters, would have to decide that it becomes law next November. So we still have a chance to save this one. Another one is House Bill 477 that puts term limits on our school board members, going from 12 down to 8 years now. So they keep bringing it down. So another bill there, and there were, you know, another one or two related to school boards. But of course, the big one, and it seems like forever ago that we talked about this, it was HB1 school choice, signed into law on March 27th, and it will be effective July 1. It is the universal voucher bill that makes vouchers available to every K through 12 student in Florida, even children of millionaires, while it siphons money away from our already underfunded public school system, where more than 85% of our children are enrolled. This is conservatively estimated to cost $4 billion within the first 5 years, as public schools lose $2.4 to $3.4 billion by the 26 to 27 school year. And these are numbers from the Florida Policy Institute. Of course, it will impact children and communities who are always more horribly impacted by laws like this, and that is in our communities of color in our impoverished neighborhoods. And those are the education bills. And I think Nathan or Stacy will be talking about the next slide.
I got you. So Republicans, unfortunately, have won the message so far in our state on this issue when we look at the polling. You know, in my county, there is a Christian school called Seven Rivers Christian School. If you look at their football fields, you look at their whole complex, it is a beautiful place. And so many of our residents believe that that is the private school that they're going to get with the voucher dollars that the state is going to give them, right? That's not where they're going to get. You know, and if, you know, Scott Hottenstein from Public Education Caucus talks a lot about this, they're going to get a school in a strip mall that might not be accredited and all of the things. So really, this is an issue, you know, maybe when we get but something to continue talking to our school boards about, to make parents aware that, hey, this is not going to be a great deal for you. You know, it's a very mixed bag with how Floridians feel about that, because we didn't have enough time and we weren't able to get the message out correctly. But that's kind of top level on that. All right. And we move on to polling data. And Stace, did you correct so you can actually see the slides now? Because it's going to be
right now you're not sharing anything. So, and I'm not sure whether I can change my view.
all right.
Okay, I can see enough to kind of wing this one. We'll see how
Okay.
I do on the next one. You may have to take over. So this one's really important because it goes hand in hand with what the Democratic Party has been pushing in their messaging. So Floridians are very concerned about health, safety, and prosperity. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to see the biggest issue, the biggest concern is the cost of everyday items, okay? So think about that. I mean, everybody that we're talking to, that's kind of top of mind. You know, gas prices at 21%. The cost of housing I thought was interesting at 22%. I thought that was going to be bigger. The cost of home and auto insurance, that's huge. There are literally people in all of our communities that are trying to figure out where they're going to go because their insurance premiums have doubled and in some cases tripled. That stacked on top of their mortgage payment and all the other rising costs are making so many of our friends and neighbors very vulnerable, and many of them are looking at losing their home. These are opportunities for us to create those connections. So at the top of the social issue is gun violence and access to abortion care, and moving up in the poll seems to be the LGBTQ rights, and that's great. You know, I think that enough people are talking about it in normal ways, right? Enough people in the circles are talking about, you know, people are people and people have rights, you know, and even if you don't understand some of these things, you know, we are doing a better job as Democrats at messaging them so that people are getting a better understanding of things, even if it's not their issue, right? So those three that are in those blue boxes, I can't see the numbers, but it looks like they are all scoring relatively high. And those are some of our biggest issues that we talk about as Democrats. We need to make sure that we're out there talking to our friends and neighbors about these things. But keep in the back of your mind that all these other costs, the financial message is critically important too. The Republicans want to talk about, woke and wokeism and all these cultural clashes because, a lot of people can't agree on them, but we can agree that's expensive as hell to live right now. And that is hitting every single one of us at the kitchen table. Next slide. I said that with such authority, didn't I? So I want, no, go back. No, there it is. Nope, I can't see it. So Nathan, if you can.
Yep. So the good news is that
It looks-
people are pissed, to use the vernacular, at what's happening in our state
Thank you.
legislature. In February, 46% thought the state was going on the right track. Now that we're out of session, that number is down to 42%, and now 50% of folks say we're on the wrong track. So can you see that one, Stace?
I can read this one. And here's the great news. They're blaming the legislature and the governor, right? They're not mad at Democrats. They're mad at the people who are making the decisions in this state. And that's phenomenal, right? This is a huge opportunity for us. If you take a look at DeSantis, especially, look at his numbers. February of this year, his approval rate was 60. It's dropped 10 points. And look at his disapproval. It's gone up. I mean, those are great margins. Look at that. People are angry. Why are they angry? Well, we have a supermajority. We have like a trifecta in the state of Florida, and they are overreaching every day. They are taking away things from everybody across the board, and people are pissed. So this is a wonderful unifying time for us. I know a lot of us don't like talking outside of, our comforts and our norms to our neighbors and friends in the community, but these are wonderful unifying things to talk about. So Nathan, I'll kick it back to you.
All right. So, we wanted to do something different with this presentation. There are lots of people out there doing things about session. You'll see Anna Eskamani, various advocacy groups doing their own thing. But we thought we would do a couple of things this evening. Provide a high-level overview with some real-world examples of how it affects our communities. And then really putting it all together as what can we do as Democrats? What can we do as citizens? What can we do as residents of our counties to talk about these things with our local BOCCs, with our voters, whoever the case may be. So here are kind of some main areas, whether it be letters to the editor, public comment periods, social media, text and phone banking about these issues, canvassing, one of Stacy's favorite activities, and even at the grocery store, right? That person that you see, 4 times a month that happens to shop every Saturday when you shop, that you've had a great conversation with, those are the people that we need to reach and say, hey, do you know what happened in Tallahassee this week? Do you know why that XYZ has happened? Do you know why your property insurance is? And it's those everyday conversations that really help with this process. Stace? You're muted again. There you go.
Yep, I keep doing that because I have 4 dogs, and the last thing y'all need to hear is my dogs barking. So are we going to move on to the next slide, Nathan?
We are. So,
all right. Oh.
Yeah. Before we do that,
who's that?
though,
Who's that young man?
Yeah, I know. Before we get to my shining face on giving a speech, let's let Jean and Krista, if they have any thoughts on how they can pull how this works in their local community, since we'll be y'all.
Krista?
Well, I think that your last slide is exactly where we're trying to head with here in St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce, and the Treasure Coast area. I've been attending a city council meeting just to so they've seen my face. I know some of them. And then when I get up and speak, I won't be like doing that for the first time. And I've got members I'm encouraging to show up at county commission meetings. And then one of the benefits of being retired is I can do these things. And so, that's what we're trying to do. And also, just as you said, engage with people wherever and whenever we can. The other thing is just events. I'm not sure if that was on your list. Tabling events, this time of the year, we have a Haitian Flag Day celebration. We have a Juneteenth event. Our Democratic Women's Club's manned a table at a local Pride Fest. And so we are starting those dialogues. And quite frankly, we got 70 people to sign up at the recent Pride Fest, people who were interested in getting involved, which is, we've never gotten that many people to sign up ever since I've been doing this. So, so that's how, among other things, how we're proceeding. But as I've said to everybody in my club, we got to step up, we got to step out, we got to be loud, we got to get involved, because the democracy depends on it.
Thanks, Krista. Jean, how about you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how beautiful those last graphs were. They really are a thing of beauty to see DeSantis's numbers go in the tank like that. When we started session this year, we emphasized the fact that we all had to fight back. We got a lot of, well, what's the point? We're never going to change their votes. We're never going to change their minds. And it was all about, look, you're not going to change their minds. But it's all about making sure that they know we're here, and making sure that those around us, our community, our friends, our neighbors, as we're talking about here, know what's going on. And there is no doubt that we have done that as a whole. We have done that in our community and around the state, such that people are now much more aware of what happened in Tallahassee. And keep in mind, state legislatures have always functioned in darkness. I mean, people are just literally waking up to the fact that state legislatures around the country are where democracy goes to die. It truly is. They have been able to function in the darkness for too long, and we are now waking up to the fact that this is just simply out of control. So I love seeing those numbers, and I came across something just last week. I'm a Ted Lasso fan, and I saw something in their episode last week, and I thought, well, we're going to stop saying fight back, because it's now time to fight forward. Time to go on the offensive, take advantage of this upside down a little bit, and go on the offensive. And nothing is taking the offensive more than working, for example, to get the abortion petition through and on the ballot. And I just see a lot of hope and vigor and enthusiasm on our side. It's time to go on the offense.
All right, thank you very much for Jean for that. We appreciate you. Before we kick off our little show and tell with Stacy and I's, speeches on these topics, Stacy and I got together back in, March, and decided that we need to talk to folks about preemption, and that's kind of how we all ended up here this evening. And you'll notice in both of our speeches something that I think is telling and I think is important. In my first speech, or the only speech you'll see this evening, but that I come out as a small business owner, because I am, and you're not going to hear the word Democrat in my entire speech to my Board of County Commission meetings. And I know I will probably get some hate text for that. I know I'll get some hate mail, but there are times when holding our party flag high, especially in our rural red communities, isn't the best for making the changes that we need. I know I'm going to get screamed at, but that's okay. Stace, before I go into the videos, do you have anything?
No, it's true. We will likely get some disagreements, but ultimately, if we want to be heard, we need to learn how to listen, right? And let me just pose this to y'all. If you're upset that every now and then we feel like we need to check our partisanship at the door, if I'm sitting in my home on a Sunday afternoon, enjoying my family, and somebody approaches and knocks on my door and they're wearing a Trump shirt, I'm not likely to care what they say. I'm not likely to hear what they want to talk to me about, even if it's something that we might have in common. Instantly that wall goes up, right? Why are you here? I don't care what you have to say. And so, that's, I think, the lens with which Nathan is talking here. When we are trying to get people to hear us and to promote conversations, right? That's one of the reasons why we go to our county commission meetings, why we go and attend school board. It's not as a Democrat, it's not as a Republican, it's out of concern for what's going on in our county and what we can bring to the attention of our officials, and what it is that we can do to attempt to do what we can for our community or for the students at our schools that attend our public schools. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this. I don't know, I think we're listening to Nathan's first. His is in front of his Board of County Commission. The little video we have of me is when I went in front of our school board. This is just kind of some ideas. We have an awful lot of garbage coming at us. These bills are terrible. And some of us are greatly concerned, and we really don't know what to do with that frustration. And so here, just, Nathan and I put together a toolkit, and this is kind of an expansion of where we were, what's next. So bear with us. I hope you enjoyed the videos. And then I think at that point, we'll open it up for questions, right, Nathan?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Sorry. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Nathan Sharp. I'm a small business owner here in Citrus County. Commissioners, today I rise to speak in support of local government. More than 50 years ago, voters in the state of Florida enshrined in the state constitution the idea that the best form of government is the one closest to the people, and home rule became a part of law here in our Sunshine State. Over the last 2 decades, at the behest of big developers, big corporations, and frankly, big donors, the party of small government has chipped away at the power of county and city governments through legislation passed by the Florida legislature. This session is exceptional in the number of preemption bills, most of which have been supported by our own state legislatures, that will take power away from this body and take power away from our local citizens. These number of bad bills are out there in Tallahassee. I'm just going to talk about 2 of them. HB 439, also SB 1604, the Land Use and Development Regulations has passed through 2 committees in both chambers. These builder-sponsored bills would end counties and cities' ability to deny a proposed land use plan change because there aren't enough roads, schools, and other infrastructure to support that development. Again, a big giveaway to big developers. HB 383, SB 346, public construction is being fast-tracked through both chambers and makes major changes to rules regarding local preferences for public works projects. This bill preempts local governments from having a local preference for vendors for all projects, even if they're funded fully by the county. So there are a number of items on your agenda today that would not be allowed to have any sort of local preference. So can you tell us what you've done to push back against this harmful legislation and what you're hearing from Representative Mazzullo and Senator Ingoglia? Have you begun calculating the financial impact bills like this will have on our community? And what can we as citizens do to help protect our citizens in this county? Thank you very much. All right. So 2 different styles. Sorry. Good afternoon. Stacy's style is a little bit different than mine, but whatever works for everyone, it's your own thing. So here's Stace.
I'm a Levy County resident. It's funny, I live in Williston on my address, but I'm very much closer to Bronson. So I was aware of your meeting this morning, and as a concerned citizen, I just am here to ask some questions about some of the legislation coming from Tallahassee and how it is that you all think that it's going to directly impact the way that our county is able to function and continue to fund education, educational programs. So I am concerned. There's a lot of money that it seems is going to be removed from our public educational system and pushed into private education, homeschooling. I'm sure I'm not the first to bring this to your attention. I'm sure you all have pondered it, but I'm not really hearing much about what it is that Levy County is doing to address this, if anything. And my second comment is going to be, as a concerned citizen, I'm happy to assist in the direction that we can move through Levy County to make sure that we have some really great educational programs. There's so many things that stem from a solid and strong educational system. You know, we know one of the first things that as our young families are picking their place where they want to live, the first thing they look at is the educational opportunities. And it's my understanding that in Levy County, so many people are currently employed by the public education system. So one of my first concerns is the children, of course, their level of learning and how that's going to be impacted. Secondarily to that, how many of our families is this impacting at the employment level? Okay. Third, and probably the furthest vision of that is, you know, I come from bigger cities. I think most of y'all kind of have an idea of who I am. But, you know, from the tax base, you know, a lot of people, they go by, you know, what grade is your school, so that people actually make those decisions on whether or not to move here. And it also kind of attacks our property values if our educational system continues to go down and getting some head nods. So this is really, to me, this is kind of an egregious attack. It's a power grab. You know, I believe that the best government is the one closest to the people. And if we cannot come to our school boards, we cannot come to our municipal and our townships and to our board of county commissioners and work out some resolutions and then work together, right? I'm here also today, not just to say, what are y'all doing about it, but to say, what can I help you do about it? Okay, I'm a solutions-based person. I like to organize and get stuff accomplished. So I'm here today to say, what are you doing and what can I do to help? Okay, I'm going to sit down and shut up. Does anybody have any questions of me before I sit down and be quiet? And I'd love to hear y'all kind of, you know, talk out loud, so to speak, if you can, on some of those issues that I have raised.
Mr. Carroll, would you like to comment?
Sure, I can comment. So the first thing I'll share is 2 weeks ago, our board members were in California for things, but they're legislative and passed.
Nathan, if you could for a second.
But we are very active.
Yep. Yeah, I'm skipping to the good part.
So one of the best things about this is, and again, yes, Nathan and I had two very different styles. I showed up because I was called and, you know, prompted to, and I said, absolutely. I have no idea what I'm going to say. So that was all totally off the cuff. But what happens next, I think, is far more important than anything I said or did, right? All I did was challenge them to respond to some questions and some issues. And what happens next is really, I think Nathan texted me something hysterical. I hope y'all get the same.
Since we were up there to come back up.
Okay. Thank you very much.
What do you think the logic behind that is?
Which part?
Warp speed. Is it conveniently we're in session so we can't meet with these people that have? Okay, it's not good as a person that's going to have to go to Tallahassee with you, and I have made no bones about it. I can't sit there and look in the eyes of a person representing me and say, you're doing a great job, and I don't think you're doing a great job. I look at this. We're still going to have to meet that minimum requirement, but you took the funding. I have problems with the mandates. I have problems, and I'll sit here and say this before God and everybody. I'm a Republican, but as a school board member, I'm nonpartisan. Nothing makes me angrier than to see a person who represents our area follow strictly party lines instead of doing what I swore I would do, and that is the best for my people. I'm glad Ms. Peters came today. I'm glad. I'm not going to blow smoke up you, man. I have sworn I've been here 14 years, good 10. There is a war against our public education system, a flat-out war, and we're fighting it every day. The best thing we can do, have folks like you show up in Tallahassee and tell them you're tired of it. And when you see these guys that don't vote the way we want you to, you voting on that party line because we got to move up, we got to get our power. Remember that. And I don't have a problem saying that, so that's why y'all may not want me going. I'm not gonna hug your neck. I'm not gonna pose in your picture after you talk to me and grace me with your presence for 5 minutes. When I sent you to do a job, and you're not doing the job I sent you to do. You're cutting funding. You're mandating things and cutting funding.
All right.
So you guys
Pretty
get the point,
stuff.
right? You get the picture. It goes on and on. He wasn't the first, nor was he the last to thank me for coming and literally talk about the attack on home rule, talk about how they all feel, like they've been absolutely betrayed, and that our current government in its form, the supermajority, is taking and it's hurting them, it's hurting their families, it's hurting our entire county. Again, these are conversations where we are all very similar, right? We're going to disagree on some of the other stuff, but this is where we start chiseling away and, looking at those numbers with DeSantis and looking at how people are pissed, not just at the governor, but our legislators. The majority of the people they're mad at, they're not us. They're fellow Republicans. So if we can not thumb our nose and y'all are a bunch of idiots, you keep voting along, for the same people, blah, blah, blah. And we can find wedge issues, and these are those. This is how we make a difference. This is how we get the governor out of office and make sure he's never our president. These are ways that we can start changing some of the public opinion about who we are and what we stand for. We have Democrats regularly, and I've got a couple of them on here. Christine Swit, I'm going to call you out, that show up and are constantly being those helpful people and doing extra research to help our Board of County Commissioners to make the right decisions in our communities, right? I didn't need to take my time. I don't have children in public education or public school. All my kids are grown and gone. I could keep pushing that down. It's not my fight. It is my fight. You know why? Because I live in this county and because I care about this county, just like each and every one of you do. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. And hopefully we're giving you guys some good ideas on ways that you can start to change the narrative. People now look at me, the same gentleman, the superintendent of schools, before I showed up that day, he knew I was a Democrat. He knew I was going to disagree with him on some issues. I saw him recently, a couple days ago. Hey, Miss Stacy, how you doing? How's the family? I'm a real person to him now, right? I can change the influence in the room, right? Democrats are starting to go full circle in my community because we're showing up and we're not telling everybody they're stupid and ignorant, but we are actually putting forth the research and having good constructive conversations. And everybody on this call can do that. If you're looking for something to do, if you're wringing your hands because you're frustrated, we can do it. Nathan showed up with bills and details. I didn't even mention what I was talking about. I just lobbed a couple of questions out there and made them, and asked them to please talk out loud about, some of my concerns, right? They didn't have to go down that rabbit hole, but they did. They want to talk about it. They want the community to feel their frustration because their power is being taken. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Nathan, I'm surprised you let me talk that long. I'm going to kick it back over to you, Nathan, for any follow-up. And then if we want, we can open it up for questions.
Yep, I went ahead and made it so folks can unmute themselves. That's all I think of our scheduled programming. Please feel free, there's a small enough group to wave at us or use the hand, whichever. Not going to get too draconian about moderation at this point in the night. So if you have questions, please let us know, and I'll pick on somebody to either answer the question for you, or we will jot it down and get an answer back to you. And let's see what I saw. Let's see.
We got to have questions.
We got to have questions.
Well, I'm going to pose my question to y'all then. You all don't want me to start asking questions.
I got Mary's hand.
Mary's had it.
She saved you. She saved the rest of the room, let me promise you.
I'm
Go
very
ahead, Mary.
small.
I'm very slow. Thank you. Yes, to follow up with the question in the chat, can we get the slides with the polling results, or at least get them on hard copy or emailed?
Yep, I will make that happen.
Thank
Absolutely. Absolutely. The polling slide that really surprised me the most was the voucher program. You know, I just, everyone I talk to is so upset about vouchers and what that's going to do. But the Republicans have done such a fantastic job at making it about freedom to choose. Imagine that, you know, the Republicans talking about freedoms to choose something, and people are buying it. And so these are really important things for us to be able to talk to in our communities. The more we know about it, the more we can really help people assess, you know, what that means. And I will tell you that our school board is terrified to start looking at what these numbers are going to do to counties like ours. I mean, I'm pretty sure that our numbers are like 30% of our county is employed by the public school system. And as hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars are no longer going into their general fund or wherever it is that the money goes, and they're going out to other opportunities, you know, it's unfathomable how we're supposed to keep up with mandates that are unfunded in the first place. I mean, our public school systems have never been fully funded, not ever, never in their entire history. And now we're going to do this on top of it. I mean, we haven't even touched on teacher shortages and what that's going to look like in the state of Florida. It's crazy. So.
And, you know, we kind of flew through the other actions, you know, slide pretty quickly, but, you know, things like letters to the editor are still important if you have a local daily. You know, I had the most interesting conversation. We have a group, I think they're the Club 45 group or some very conservative group in our town. One of the women that's part of it runs a very conservative podcast. She approached me after 2 meetings, I think I finally have agreed. But she wants me to come on her podcast and talk about preemption and talk about these freedom issues, which is for her. She knows I'm Democrat. She knows I'm a big old homo. She knows who I am. But she wants me to go ahead and talk on her show about these issues. And that's something that we can come together on. And so for me, I mean, I'm getting out of my box, my comfort box to do this, but thanks, Stacey, it's all your fault. And Tim Gilbert, who's not here, but I would yell at him for it being his fault. You know, it's something that I know not everybody's comfortable doing that, and that's okay. Find the thing that you're comfortable doing, whether it's a letter or whatever the case may be, and do it. That's my kind of sage final words, unless anybody has other questions.
Well, I wanted to address a couple of things in the chat, but
Yep,
to follow up with what Nathan just said, you know, I'm uncomfortable doing most of what I do. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to get done, right? I hate speaking publicly. I hate it. It's the worst thing in the world to me. But, you know, the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. And sometimes we have to expand our comfort zone. I mean, I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but I think most of us will agree. Democracy depends on it. I mean, I cannot even fathom a world with this much taking away of powers across the board. It's nuts. Ione Townsend did drop in here that some of those slides did come from a weekly comms and messaging meeting that occurs. It's been occurring for, I think, the last 2 years. And it's put on by Florida Watch, which is in parentheses in her note, an Alliance Communication and Research Hub. These folks do a fantastic job. You can register. Ione dropped the link in there, and it's phenomenal. There are groups throughout the state that, I mean, their main mission is to bring together messaging and to share everything they're learning with everybody, and then hoping that people will broadcast some of it so it becomes usable, right? If it just sits in your email inbox, folks, it's worthless. I mean, I just want y'all to understand that. I'm guilty too. If y'all don't text me that there's something important in my email, I may not find it. We're inundated, we're under attack. So BJ commented that most counties, the largest employers are the community hospitals and the public school system. Again, if we're looking for ways to connect with voters, it doesn't get any better than local issues. It truly does not. And while you're out there and you're meeting these fantastic people that agree with you, we also need to be encouraging people to run for office, right? We need to be encouraging people to join us at an ice cream social or something fun. Don't make the mistake of inviting them, or like the first thing they do is to come to a DEC meeting. Why? Because they're boring and because a lot of people don't always agree. There's a little back and forth and it's not always our best foot forward. But an ice cream social, who could get mad there, right? Right? I mean, let's get creative. We need to bring more people in so they can do more work with us, right? But invite them in. Don't invite them and then shut them down if they've got an idea that's not necessarily your idea. Be welcoming, right? We're Democrats, damn it. I'm done.
I see
It
Joe.
looks like we have.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Joe.
There we go. Just make one statement. You shouldn't be scared. Anybody shouldn't be scared to go in front of the county commission, especially if you're there with facts. The biggest deal, they're used to having people come in and just complaining, and they really don't understand what's behind it, especially in our small counties. They don't have the staff that has all the expertise that they need to make certain decisions to recommend to the board. I will, of course, mention my darling wife over here. She's going to now make faces at me. She happens to be an environmentalist with a master's in environmental engineering of environmental studies. And so she's been able to help the Levy County Commission recently on some of their, and they're trying to write some new ordinances to do with manure disposal. Guess that. We all deal with SHIT, but it's a little different. But at any rate, and she's been thanked by them when bringing the information to them so they don't make a wrong decision. In my case, I'm used to going before county commissions because I worked for the city of Ocala for many years. And I addressed that commission to the city all the time and had to go to the county. At first, it was undaunting for me, even with the experience I had in business. But once you get up in front of them, if you've got real facts, you're not just complaining and you can point something out to them, they appreciate it. And that shows with what Stacy did in front of the school board. And if you want to talk about putting a bunch of people in the same room, Stacy and I were just at a conference last week, this weekend, and we had some very big issues in our state charter to deal with. And we had some dissension in the room, but everybody got along. Maybe disagreed. And but it was, and at the end, it worked out. Everybody was pretty happy with how it came out. So whatever, that's it. I just want, don't be scared to go in front of those boards if you have your facts. They appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Krista.
Awesome. Thanks.
So, I'll put on my hat as a former local government staff member, and I'll just share that so many people that show up at local government meetings rant and rave and just act outrageous. Right. And elected officials roll eyes and it falls on deaf ears. So if you are, as Mr. Swift just said, if you're coherent, calm, and factual, the other thing I will always suggest to you, if the staff then sees that you're a rational, polite individual that has some knowledge, you can often connect with staff members, the city or county attorney's office or whatever, and offer to assist or provide information, or how can I better, how can I come again? How can I make a presentation? Those kind of things just are very effective tools as opposed to ranting and raving.
Yep. 100%. And if we're working on building the bench, which we all need to be working on the credibility in the community is absolutely vital to ever electing Democrats, especially if for any reason this partisan bill goes through and every Democrat or everybody running for any office at any level is going to have to be identified with a D. If we're building this in the community, if we're building relationships, then they start to really see us as people. They really do. Are they ready to elect me or Christine yet? Probably not. But in the next couple of years, there's going to be a shift. We just need to be diligent. We need to continue to stay present, right? Let's not just show up and now the session's over, we're pissed, we're frustrated, we go to our county commission meeting once, we speak, and we never go back again. No. Remember what they tell you, and then go back the following month. Hey, it's Stacy again. Last time I was here, there was some conversation at the dais, and you all were going to be checking with the Senate about this. Where is that? And when I was here last, I asked you to whether or not Levy County had made assessments to see what this is going to cost the county. Where are those numbers? Have you been able to start making those assessments yet? Because this is a reminder. And why this is important? Well, we have elections coming up in 2024, and we need to make sure that we are out there staying front and center on the issues and building those connections. There's not one time where I show up at a meeting, whether I speak or not, where somebody doesn't follow me out and say, hey, talk to me about this. Christine, you're shaking your head. Our county commissioner, I won't say his name, came up and actually, thanked Christine, who is the chair of our Democratic Party here in Levy County. That's a big deal, right? They view her as a person who is knowledgeable and helpful, not the enemy, right? That was not the case perhaps a year ago, but we have been slowly working on it. We're not losing our temper. We're not telling people they're stupid. We're having great conversations that will ultimately lead to people like Christine being elected for county commission. Right, Christine?
I don't think she's buying what you're selling on that one yet, Stace.
We actually have a really good Republican in my district right now, so plus she works her butt off. So
yeah, no, we actually do have some really good ones, and they agree with us on some issues. Some of the women that are our county commissioners, they are with us in lockstep on women's issues and on so many other things that we talk about. So, let's try not to judge a book by its cover too much. Right. Anyway, I hope you'll all stay engaged. If you are interested in receiving the slide deck or the recording, send Nathan an email or just simply reach out to me or hit reply. And that way we can get whatever information you need. If you want our Dog and Pony show to come to your county, we're happy to Zoom in with y'all and bore you to tears and talk about preemption again. But, especially the how-to kit. I'm not committing Jean or Krista, but I will definitely commit Nathan because this was all his idea.
Yeah. And I just dropped the link to that how-to kit. Now that we're out of session and bills have changed literally 17 times in the space of the last week before they went to the governor. Our little social media graphics are a little outdated, but the stuff about the scripting and how to write a script for your speech, and how to, we have a whole list of somebody went through a volunteer and listed all the 67 counties when the BOCC meetings are, how to get there, and all those sorts of things. So that's on that list. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you everyone so much. Final word, Stacy, before we let these folks go off to enjoy the rest of their evening.
Get uncomfortable and go and speak. Keep this going, right? Let's get some shit done.